Hi, everybody. Brenden Foland, your Government Relations Director here for another weekly Facebook Live update on what's happening at the legislature. This week, we are joined by our amazing Vice President, Marisol Garcia, who will be talking a bit about some of the issues and some of the things coming up, as well as some of the things that happened this past week. We'll let her start off by talking about our Education Day at the Capitol that we just had this Tuesday.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. I know a lot of folks are still recovering from coming back from spring break, and then we have a bunch of people on spring break, but hopefully you have a chance to watch this and get updated. I just wanted to say thanks to the dozens and dozens of educators that came down this week to Education Day at the Capitol. This was our second one. We try to do two because spring breaks are such a kind of they kind of take a scope of time people take off. But this week we had a really incredible turnout, and we were able to not only hear from our favorite members, who are all AEA members, who were able to share with us some of the bills that they have been trying to be heard, things like class size and counselor ratios and funding and so forth. So we were so great to hear from them, but we also heard from leaders that wanted to share with us some strategies on how to continue to work with our representatives to really have conversations about what's happening in the classroom and bring our voices, our stories, as well as the voices and stories of our students. So it was an incredible day. We were able to be inside, even though the weather's been amazing. And we were also able to give folks updates. So as all of you know, we are getting close to some really important timelines and deadlines that happen in the legislature, including the next few weeks. Committee hearings are going to start slowing down, and everything's going to be about the budget. So I'm going to hand things back to Brenden to tell you where we're at with some of these bills that we've been hearing about.
Thank you, Marisol. Luckily this week, other than Tuesday with our Education Day, was pretty quiet for the first time in a while. We had a little bit of a reprieve from some of the really bad bills. As I mentioned last week, House Education Committee didn't meet this week, so we didn't have to worry about anything going on there. Senate Education, however, did meet. They heard two bills we are opposed to. The first was 2161, and the second is House Bill 2495. So 2161, as a quick reminder, is the bill that would require all educators to out all of their LGBTQ students. We were able to work with several of the LGBTQ organizations to get an amendment on the bill that will remove the language that would force educators to out their students. Now the bill clarifies that parents have access to their child's educational records, which they already do. And it also gives the parents the right to sue a school that violates their parental rights. This is still a really big issue for public schools, as there's no clarity in the bill, and this bill's sponsor couldn't point out what a violation of parental rights looked like. So there's still a lot there's still vagueness to the bill's language that could have a lot of unforeseen consequences and result in a lot of frivolous lawsuits against our public schools for a perceived violation of parental rights. House Bill 2495, this is the bill that will ban any book that contains sexual conduct. The bill does have some exemptions for classic literature, early American literature, or any book that's required for a class leading to college credit, so AP courses essentially. This isn't a full exemption. They are the proponents of this bill, the bill sponsor, is saying that this is just a blanket exemption. It's not. Instead of being all these books being banned that are, classic literature, early American literature, instead now teachers, you all will have to be required to get a signed permission slip for every single book that contains any sexual conduct in it. So books, classics, The Great Gatsby, Romeo and Juliet, or ironically even 1984, are now going to be required to have permission slips just to be used in class. That's luckily all we had to deal with this week. Looking forward to next week, we are not so lucky. The House is meeting again, and they're hearing some really bad bills. The first one you've heard, I'm sure, a lot. You've probably heard about a lot of these quite a bit. The first one is Senate Bill 1159. This is the bill that further weakens teacher certification and allows anyone with an emergency teaching certificate, an emergency sub certificate, or just a regular substitute certificate to participate in these classroom-based teacher prep programs where they'll learn how to teach while they're the primary teacher of record. These programs in statute and in law are very restrictive and limit even what the State Board of Education, who is supposed to have oversight of these programs, what they can require. So it's almost a rubber stamping for many of these programs, which is a huge problem. The bill also expands what are called subject matter expert certificates to kindergarten through 5th grade. We're still trying to figure out how somebody proves that they're an expert in kindergarten to become a subject matter expert and get one of these certificates. But the proponents believe that that is possible. The next one is Senate Bill 1211. This is the bill that will require all educators to post every single thing they use in the classroom online. And additionally, everything that you use will have to be made available to all parents and prospective parents, and they can scan it, copy it, take pictures of it, do whatever they want with it. So they're taking all the hard work that teachers do and just doing whatever they want with it. They can post online, they can use it to do pretty much anything. That bill is also, as I said, is being heard on Tuesday in House Education. The next bill is Senate Bill 1326. This is what they're calling out of classroom experiences. This is the bill that will allow students to get credit and high school credit up to two credits throughout their high school career on for out of classroom experiences, things like club sports, music lessons, having a job, all count as credit now. And we have a lot of concerns with this bill. One of them being the fact that it will have it could have a very negative impact on arts programs in public schools across the state. It's a very inequitable bill, and we have a lot of concerns because of that. Senate Bill 1630 is the last major bill, I'll say, in House Education. This is the bill that would allow for 15 passenger vans to be used to transport students to and from school. And while that doesn't sound like a big issue, they've been found to be very unsafe. These vans can have they have a very low roll point. So there are concerns that this violates federal regulations. There's also student safety concerns, which is what our primary focus is. We don't believe that we should use any form of transportation for our students that is unsafe and can put them in danger. And that's it, luckily, for House Education. In House Ways and Means, we're getting out of the education committees for a quick minute. Senate Bill 1657. This is the universal educational voucher expansion bill that Senator Boyer is pushing. This will be on the House Ways and Means agenda for next week. We're working with the rest of our public school allies to try to stop the bill. We're not sure what the lay of the land looks like as it moves through the process, though. In the Senate and Senate Education, there are two bills. The first one is House Concurrent Resolution 2001. Many of you may remember House Bill 2112. That was the teacher gag bill that would prohibit teachers from teaching accurate and honest history. House Concurrent Resolution 2001 takes it a step further. This basically turns that teacher gag bill into a constitutional amendment. So this will send to the ballot the question on whether or not we should we should gag teachers with a constitutional amendment. It's a heinous bill and is a direct attack on teachers, among many other things that it does. The last one, though, is House Bill 2284. This is actually going to receive a very substantial amendment. House Bill 2808, which we talked about in previous weeks, was a bill to to take over public schools, to let private entities and charter schools come in and take over district schools and privatize. House Bill 2284 is going to receive an amendment that is almost identical to that bill because 2808 has not really had the votes to move through the House as of yet. So they're putting it on a different bill in the Senate and trying to get it through the process that way. We're still working with every one of our public school allies to fight that bill. We're still waiting on the actual language of it, so we're not sure what it will look like. In essence, we don't know if it'll be the exact same or have a few changes, but we'll make sure to keep you updated once we get that language. But I'm going to kick it back to Marisol now to kind of talk about a little bit more impact.
So yeah, I mean, I think almost weekly I get asked by my colleagues and educators like, this is too much following this bill, HB 12. There's just so much, I want to be able to just go to school and teach. And I want to frame it, I want to kind of give two overreaching kind of two things that the legislature is really focused in on this year. The first one is really privatizing and pivoting away a commitment to strong public schools. And so that looks like everything from an open field for vouchers. Every student can go to private schools and we're going to pay for that. And, the AEA and the NEA on a national level has been fighting against vouchers for 20 to 30 years, mainly because all that money, if it was invested in public schools, we wouldn't need any of these programs out there. They wouldn't need to exist, right? And that's the same belief that we have regarding charter schools. We want families to not have to necessarily look at a map and think, oh, that might be a better place for my student to go because of the community. But the school be so strong and so healthy and so unified in that area that it becomes the center of our community. In that case, I want my son to get on his bike and ride his bike to a school, which is something I had as a child growing up here in Phoenix. I was able to walk to school and go to Rover Elementary School. My parents felt safe and it was a great school. It was a wonderful school. Every student throughout the state deserves that opportunity. Even if they're living in a rural area and they have to get on a bus, their community should be able to get on a bus stop and ride that bus to a well-funded, beautiful school. And so all of these ideas of pivoting away and having transportation grants and having vouchers and giving kids extra credit is all a way of looking at schools as a way of making money. And that's not what public schools are supposed to be. They should be focused in on making opportunities for every single one of our kids. A lot of us who are educators, work at school sites, know that every single day we have an opportunity to change a kid's life by giving them a new skill set, by teaching them a new strategy of how to solve a problem, of learning something new about history, of reading a new book. All of those things happen in great public schools. They shouldn't happen for a small percentage of schools. Secondarily, because this legislature and this particular governor and his donors have chosen to see schools as money, as profiting, as a place to profit, they continue to find new ways of not coming up with solutions to fund these schools. And so for 3 times, this organization, your organization, actually collected signatures and went to the ballot. And they created a system to, no matter what we did, it became so unfair that using all three branches of government, which I teach in my classroom, these 3 branches of government have rigged the system to a point that we have to change the system. And so that's why we decided to go against 208. That's why the governor expanded the Supreme Court. That's why the Supreme Court threw that out. Now, we were super disappointed, heartbroken, just in complete devastation that the court upheld, the lower courts upheld it. However, the current governor and current legislature have enough money to fill the voters' needs and wants by passing that by the current budget that they have. But they're choosing not to. They're choosing to have all these discussions about small vans and what the teacher should be teaching, and if we can protest on site, if we should be teaching our students how to shoot weapons in schools, or watching videos about guns in schools, or limiting my ability to share my story about my family's history on this land with my students because it may make a student feel uncomfortable, instead of focusing on the fact that as a teacher, I'm actually helping them emotionally understand and actually just understand the history of the land that they live on. So that's one huge kind of theme that we see happening, and not just here in Arizona, across the country. And then we'll see the other theme, and that is ignoring the will of the voters. Legislators, politicians work for me, they work for you, they work for my family, they work for my students' families. They should be responsive and they should be open to what the voters want. The voters passed 208, so they found a way to pull it back. They want to be able to vote easily. I know I have voted by mail since I was 18. I went to college in California. It was a standard thing we did. When I moved here, it was an option I took because I always worked on Tuesday because it's a school day. And they're trying to repeal that as well. They're trying to make it harder for the will of the voters to go to the initiative process. These two things are connected. It all goes back to power. And over the last few weeks, specifically this last week, we heard about there being a possibility of a special session to do two things: fix a bill that they messed up on, which has to do with precinct captains, again, a very political thing, and to repeal what we sent to the voters and replace it, the 4%. So what we now call Proposition 307, or Invest in Arizona. What they're trying to do is repeal that so that the voters don't get a chance to say that was a bad law. They'll say, oh, it was a bad law. Instead of 4%, we're going to change it to maybe just a little bit. And so it can't go to the ballot. Again, the two are connected. Educators, the AEA, the major funder and collector of signatures for both of these, has been focused on restructuring a system that is not serving not only our students, but our communities and working families in Arizona. And just remember, the average beginning teacher salary in Arizona is still below $40,000. There is a housing crisis that we hear about daily of skyrocketing rents, the inability to purchase new homes. There's a healthcare issue happening in our schools. There's a counselor issue happening in schools. All of these things are not being dealt with to ensure a small percentage of Arizonans are able to keep the profits that they're making while the rest of us are battling. And so every Friday when we do these, I think, wow, you guys must be so tired. I know when I left Fridays, I used to be like, I just want to go home and, at the time, just turn on Bravo that I had DVR during the week. But this is important for you all to understand that these two currents that are running through this legislative session are targeting to profitize off our schools and take away the will of the voters, which will make Arizona and continue to make Arizona an embarrassment to this country. This is not how students are treated in other states. This is not how voters are treated in other states. Not a day goes by that my Twitter feed, that my news cycle, that the newspapers talk about why are they continually attacking voters? Why can't they support public education? There are real issues happening in this state that you are confronting, your families are confronting, and working families are confronting. And they are neglecting to deal with that with the hope to virtue signal about our teachers are teaching stuff in school, which we know isn't happening. And then on the other hand, by trying to completely untie any sort of public funding to schools and give them to people who are making money off of our children. And I've said this since I moved to Arizona and found out how horribly we were funded when the first time I got my paycheck as a single mother with a 6-month-old, where it was only it was literally close to $700, my first paycheck. I realized that these folks were trying to sell my kids to the highest bidder. They're trying to sell my son. He is seen as a number for somebody to make money on a bottom line because they see schools as businesses. And there is not a day that I taught 8th grade social studies in the Isaac School District where I saw my students as clients, nor did I ever see them as a space where I could create images in their minds of things that were not true. I saw that as a commitment to that community, and I'm still committed to that community, as I know you all are. So there's so much on your plate, and I know on a daily basis, your district, your site is coming up with new things for you to do on your plate because that's what they do. But we are going to continue to ask you to be an advocate, reach out to your elected officials, share your stories with your friends, wear your red shirts, be proud of being an Arizona educator, because to me, an Arizona educator is also an activist and an advocate for great public schools. And so if you have not signed up for a legislative update, you need to do that. We're going to put the link in this. If you do not get them and you want to just directly take action right now, you can go to our website, arizonaea.org/take action. You can click, you can send letters, you can tweet at these people. But the next few weeks are critical because they're going to throw everything at the wall. And we all know why. 2022 is a huge year for the parties. And this is not political. This has everything to do with policies, and those get written by politicians. And we want the type of politicians that are listening to voters, parents, educators, and students, not listening to outside of the state donors or listening to people who are trying to make money off of our students. So it may seem like bad news, but I actually take it as good news because I want the fight. Let's have it out. Because when I've been asked repeatedly by reporters, you know, Marisol, at what point, like, what should we do? Do you just want us to throw money at salaries? You know, how do you know that works? And my answer is, how do we know it doesn't work? We have not tried that in this state. Let's try it. We have goals that we have to hit. And the first most important goal that we need to hit is every student deserves a qualified educator and a safe, welcoming school that is full of opportunities. Until we hit that, we will continue to advocate and be activists for education. So thanks for joining us this evening. Brenden, do you have anything else you want to pop in? Please pay attention to our Facebook, our Twitter, and our TikTok that is going now. I'm so excited about it. And also make sure that you are following along on the news media, watching. If you don't follow me or Joe Thomas, our state president, follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We keep updating people. Go to your local president. They get updated every Wednesday what's going on. Reach out to them if you want to get more involved, but we're going to put some calls out and we're going to need you to show up, and it's going to be sooner than later. So everyone enjoy this weekend. I hope you had a great week and you get rejuvenated and ready for Monday. And we will see you next week.